I love minigame collections, but there's something about the immediacy of minigames and the variety of them is really what draws me in. You pick a minigame, you learn very simple controls, you have 30 to 60 seconds of utter chaos, maybe 2 minutes max, and then because you're left wanting more, you hit repeat because you know that the carnage and chaos will continue again, or if it's a single player game, you've got a skill challenge to try and meet. Mr. Goofer's Minigame Arcade Party is a single-player minigame collection that has a very different approach to minigames, and what I'll call it is stretching something out probably far longer than it needed to be. There are 25 arcade-inspired mini-games that are feeling very retro and funfair and carnival game-ish, and the best thing about Mr. Goofer's game is that there's a real variety of games here, introduced with a Barbershop Beaver Quartet, which is probably my favourite bit of the whole game, and I've listened to that song multiple times as it opens up in the main menu. But because you only start off with one of these 25 games initially, you need to meet a minimum score or criteria to then unlock the next minigame. But that criteria is set really high. And some of the games are quite skill dependent, where this feels like an actual challenge. But a lot of these mini games are quite simple. And if you think about things and take your time, you won't ever lose. And so when you've got, for example, to hit 100 colours that are out of place on a colour spectrum, so long as you don't fat finger it, you will get to that 100, but my goodness, it takes quite a long time. And then if you want to get a gold star and an achievement for that, it's 200. And it just takes even longer. But because there's no other player challenging you, or there's nothing else that's trying to cause carnage, it doesn't feel like a challenge. It just feels like we've stretched something that should have been smaller over a longer period of time without adding any more complexity or nuance to it. Another example of this is where you're trying to smash beavers like a whack-a-mole. But the moles don't ever come up faster, they just stay the same. And so in the end, you just go, I've had enough, I've met the minimum criteria and I can't die because I can keep up. And so you just go, meh, that's it. Some of the other challenges are equally as baffling, such as where you're moving up and down, either flying into the sky as a pig with wings, avoiding birds and planes, or as a frog, going to the bottom of the sea to get treasure, avoiding fish that way. Yes, there are some different things that you can potentially hit and cause yourself problems with, but so long as you're methodical, you'll get to the end. Where the game then starts to become more skill dependent is when time is of the essence. But here is where the technical side of Mr. Goofer starts to come under stress and strain. There's a minigame, for example, where you've got these beans running across the screen and you need to collect them and put them in their pen. But sometimes the mouse doesn't trigger or realise that it's actually caught the bean, and so sometimes my game over wasn't down to me, it was down to the fact that the game wasn't registering that I'd clicked the right bean with my mouse. The same with quizzes, sometimes you're having to guess what some of those answers will actually be because they're obscure and opaque, and some of the physics in this game is a bit wonky and weird too, and I'm thinking especially the pinball game drove me mad. I didn't expect to be sat in a pinball game for 15 minutes trying to get to the top of the pinball machine so that I could then trigger a pachinko-y type game and cause myself all kinds of carnage and problems trying to get that to work as well. At the end of the day, despite some really cool aesthetics and some really great ideas, I didn't enjoy Mr. Goofer's Minigame Arcade Party nearly as much as I thought I would, and I'd have enjoyed it better if the games were shorter and more succinct. And that feels like a weird counterintuitive thing to say, but this for me is stretching too simpler a game over too long a period to try and reach this top score so that you can then go on. I think maybe the other way how this game design issue could have been overcome is if you'd have unlocked several mini games together as a collection, so that if you were fatigued trying to get to the end of one, you could then try something else. And kind of take a break from it, but the game just forces you to keep on plugging away at the one that you've got. Aside from that, there is online leaderboards for most of the games, so if you are competitive you can keep going with that, but there are better, for me, single player minigame collections that are out there. And if you're looking for recommendations, Super 56 would be my first one and Game Soup would be my other. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.